Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the presentation of AST's awards. I'm Emily Blumberg, AST Past President. AST's Achievement Awards honor our members' achievements and contributions to transplantation and to our society. This year, in addition to this awards ceremony, AST will hold a recognition gala for all awards recipients, grants recipients, and newly inducted fellows of the AST. The recognition gala will take place tonight from 7 to 8:30 p.m. and will happen in a platform called Remo, which allows for large and small group interactions. We hope that you will join us to congratulate your colleagues. Visit the AST website for access to the recognition gala. Now, I have the honor of presenting two very special awards earned in 2020, but held in the hopes we would be able to recognize these deserving individuals in person this year. Since that was not to be, it's now my great pleasure to announce these two 2020 AST Award recipients. First, I would like to present the Transplant Advocacy Award. This special award honors a transplant community member who's a champion for transplantation. Award nominees have included transplant patients, living donors, donor families, and other community advocates. Our Transplant Community Advisory Council selects the recipient of this award, and I'm proud to say that the 2020 AST Transplant Advocacy Award recipient is Ms. Lisa Emmott. In 2017, Lisa's husband, Neil, needed a kidney transplant. During her evaluation to become a potential donor for him, she was deemed medically ineligible to donate. Eventually, Neil was able to receive his transplant through paired kidney exchange arranged with Lisa's help. All the while, Lisa began to turn her focus further toward kidney donation and transplant advocacy. She now volunteers as the executive director and director of media outreach for a 501c3 nonprofit, the National Kidney Donation Organization. NKDO's mission is to educate prospective living kidney donors and to end the kidney crisis in the U.S., and to that end, held their first annual volunteer living donor advocacy conference in 2020. Because she has been unable to donate life herself, Lisa has said that she donates her voice to the cause instead. Congratulations, Lisa. Now I have the privilege of presenting the AST's highest honor, the Lifetime Achievement Award, to a colleague of extraordinary accomplishments. The recipient of the 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award is Dr. Gabriel Danovich. Dr. Danovich is the John J. Kuiper Chair of Nephrology and Renal Transplantation, a distinguished professor of medicine at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA, and the medical director of the UCLA Kidney Transplant Program. He is also the medical director for organ operations at One Legacy Organ Procurement Organization, where he has provided years of leadership. Gabe was born in Cardiff, Wales, and spent his early career in England, obtaining his medical degree at St. Bartholomew's Hospital at the University of London. He completed his residency training in London and in Beersheba, Israel, and then did his nephrology fellowship at Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York City. Gabe served on the faculty at Albert Einstein and then directed the nephrology unit at Soroka Hospital in Israel before moving to UCLA in 1979. Gabe has devoted his recent career to various aspects of clinical kidney transplantation. He's the longtime medical director of UCLA's renowned kidney and pancreas transplant program, one of the largest and most successful in the U.S. He's led the UCLA AST ASN accredited kidney transplant medicine fellowship since its inception and mentored a generation of transplant physicians. He's published over 230 peer-reviewed articles and 57 book chapters. Every transplant nephrologist is familiar with his seminal textbook, The Handbook of Kidney Transplantation, now in its 6th edition and translated into 5 languages. It's become required reading for those entering the field. Dr. Danovich is an internationally recognized authority on transplant immunosuppression, clinical transplant care, transplant ethics, and public policy. He served on the boards of the AST and UNOS and as secretary of the Transplantation Society. Gabe has also served as a founding member and leader of the Declaration of Istanbul Custodian Group, and his persistent and courageous stance against organ trafficking has brought worldwide attention to a social injustice that targets the most impoverished and vulnerable of peoples. In recent years, Dr. Danovich has been honored with several prestigious awards. In 2015, he received the highest honor of the David Geffen School of Medicine, the Mellenkopf Prize. In 2018, he received an honorary fellowship to the British Royal College of Physicians. This was a big moment for Gabe, as it completed a full circle back to his British origins and medical education 50 years ago. AST awarded Gabe the Mentorship Award in 2009 and the Senior Achievement Award in Clinical Transplantation in 2015. In celebration of Dr. Danovich's long and distinguished career that has bettered the lives of his innumerable patients and their donors, his trainees, and indeed the entire transplant community, I'm proud to present him with the 2020 AST Lifetime Achievement Award. At this time, I would like to welcome Dr. Danovich.
Thank you, Dr. Blumberg, for your very kind remarks. It is indeed a privilege to receive this award in the presence, albeit virtual, of friends and colleagues from over decades of my association with the American Society of Transplantation. I'm a lucky man. I was born in Cardiff, Wales in April 1945, in the dying days of World War II. My beloved parents, Joe and Gertie, may their memory be a blessing, provided a loving and warm traditional Jewish home for me and my 2 brothers, my late brother Ralph and my dear brother Bernard. The 3 of us existed on this earth because of the serendipity of history that plucked our mother from Poland as a child, while all her family and community were turned into dust by the Holocaust. I wanted to be a doctor for as long as I can remember. After medical school in London, I joined my family in Israel, and while working in the CCU in Beersheba, met Nava, the love of my life, my muse, and my 50-year companion. The story goes, a little apocryphal perhaps, that we met during a defibrillation, and that the electric current went right through us and the sparks were flying. We have produced a most wonderful family. Itai, our sons, Itai and Roy, our daughter Yael, their partners Dinah, Matthew, and Erica, grandchildren Maya, Davis, and Alina, and on the right, their 2 new munchkins, Noah and Emily. We live in a paradise called Southern California, where most of the year I can engage in 2 of my favorite activities, biking and swimming in the ocean. I get to work at UCLA in the greatest kidney transplant program in the whole cosmos, at the custom-built Connie Frank Clinic, with a superb group of colleagues and staff, many of whom you will recognize. There are many more, but because of COVID, we could not include them in the picture here. Transplantation is a team sport, and many of my colleagues have become close friends. To represent them here, I must mention the inimitable Frank Del Monaco. Seen here with me at Mount Tabor in the Galilee in Israel, at the place where Jesus is said to have been transfigured. Frank transfigured my life 15 years ago when he asked me to become a founding member of the Declaration of Istanbul. Our work with many others in promoting ethical transplant practice around the world has been a source of profound gratification. I never dreamed that medicine would give me a diplomatic passport to make friends and colleagues around the world, particularly in the Middle East. I fantasize sometimes that if all of us transplant folks could take over from the politicians, we could make a lasting peace in that troubled piece of geography. In transplantation, we dream of tolerance. Let's work for tolerance among all of us. Thank you again for this honor. It's been a marvelous journey for me in the company of you all. Thank you.
Gabe, many thanks for your inspirational words. Dr. Danovich joins a distinguished group of Lifetime Achievement Award recipients who've created a legacy of excellence and dedication to the field of transplantation. Please join me in a virtual round of applause for Dr. Danovich. And now I would like to turn it over to Dr. Richard Formica, AST President, who will present the 2021 AST Achievement Awards.
Thank you, Emily, and congratulations to Ms. Emma and Dr. Danovich. It is now my great pleasure to announce the 2021 AST Achievement Award recipients. The AST Achievement Awards honor our members' achievements and contributions to transplantation in our society. This year, the AST has expanded our award offerings to offer additional opportunities to members who are almost exclusively clinically or administratively focused. These awards complement our existing extensive research-focused awards and allow the Society to recognize the extensive contributions of members in diverse roles in transplant. The new Physician of Distinction Award recognizes an outstanding transplant physician whose career is focused on clinical care. The tiered Distinguished Career Awards recognize excellent non-physician clinicians and administrators at various stages of their careers. I want to kick off our 2021 awards by presenting the final new award that the AST has introduced this year. The Advancing Equity in Organ Transplantation Award was established to recognize individuals whose work has made a significant impact on increasing equity and reducing racial disparities in transplantation. Many people have been doing outstanding work in this area, and it is past time that we as a society recognize them for this important work. The inaugural Advancing Equity in Organ Transplantation Award goes to Dr. Clive Callender of Howard University. Dr. Callender is the LaSalle D. LaFell Jr. Professor of Surgery and has served as chairman of the Department of Surgery at Howard University College of Medicine and director of the Howard University Transplant Center. Following undergraduate studies at Hunter College in New York, Dr. Callender went on to medical school at Meharry Medical College and then did an internship at the University of Cincinnati. He received his surgical training at Howard University and Freedman's Hospital, and then received his transplant surgical training at the University of Minnesota with Dr. John Najarian and Dr. Richard Simmons. Dr. Callender was the third African-American transplant surgeon. After returning to Howard University Hospital in 1973, he helped develop the first minority-directed dialysis and transplant center and histocompatibility and immunogenic laboratory in the United States. This became the Howard University Hospital Transplant Center. He soon discovered that the greatest obstacle in transplant medicine was a scarcity of donors. In particular, although African-American donors were more likely to have hypertension, kidney disease, and diabetes, and therefore were more likely to need dialysis, but data indicated that they were rarely organ donors. Dr. Callender wanted to explore the reasons for this discrepancy, and together with psychologist Dr. James Baton and a $500 grant, developed a study which quickly gathered information from some 40 people in the District of Columbia on why they were reluctant to become donors and their perceptions of transplantation. Although through their interaction with this study group, Dr. Callender and his partner were able to gain insight into the reluctance of African Americans to become donors. In addition, after educating this group of people about transplantation, all signed donor cards. This led to the DC Organ Donor Program, which doubled the number of African American donors there and proved its effectiveness. With the support of Dow Chemical, the program soon took Dr. Callender to 25 cities across the US. A Gallup poll after this program showed that the number of African Americans who were willing to become donors had tripled. With these early successes in mind, they founded the National Minority Organ Tissue Transplant Education Program to work across minority communities to increase understanding and donation rates. MOTTEP received $16 million between 1993 and 2010 from the National Institute to Help to develop MOTTEP sites across the country. Throughout his career in association with MOTTEP, Dr. Callender served as spokesman for organ donation at over 1,000 community settings. Since the inception of the program, African-American organ donation rates have more than tripled. And in fact, in 2010, African-Americans were the #1 ethnic group donating organs in the US. In addition to Dr. Callender's work with MOTTEP, he was instrumental in addressing some of the inequities of organ allocation, particularly in the areas of HLA antigen matching across all races. Dr. Callender has offered more than 125 scientific publications on transplantation. He was a charter member of the American Society of Transplant Surgeons and an early chair of its membership committee. He's also held leadership positions within the National Kidney Foundation, the National Medical Association, the United Network of Organ Sharing, and the Society of Black Academic Surgeons, the American College of Surgeons, and many other professional societies. Most importantly, he has served as a role model and mentor to generations of young African Americans interested in careers in transplantation. We at the AST are proud to present this inaugural Advancing Equity in Organ Transplantation Award to a trailblazer in equity in transplantation, Dr. Clive O. Callender. Congratulations, Dr. Callender. The AST Senior Achievement Award in Clinical Transplantation recognizes outstanding contributions to clinical transplantation. This year's award goes to Dr. David Cohen of Columbia University Medical Center in New York City. During his 35+ years in transplant, Dr. Cohen's career has focused on 3 areas: providing excellent clinical care, training the next generation of leaders, and advancing the field of transplantation. To accomplish these goals, his time has been divided between clinical research, clinical care, teaching, administration, and service to the transplant community at large. Dr. Cohen currently serves as the Daniel Midler John A. Katsmetis Professor of Nephrology at the Columbia University Medical Center in New York City, where he has been the medical director of the kidney transplant program since 1988. He has led the AST Accredited Transplant Nephrology Fellowship at Columbia University and has trained over 25 fellows in a rich learning environment, blending an intense clinical experience along with involvement in clinical research. Nearly all of his fellows are in full-time academic positions at transplant programs across the US, and several have become program directors. Dr. Cohen has published over 100 papers in peer-reviewed journals involving clinical research and transplantation policy, as well as a number of book chapters. He was engaged in early clinical trials, as well as in post-marketing studies of almost all the new anti-rejection medications as they were introduced over the past several decades. More recently, his work has focused on analyzing data on the current use of discarded deceased donor kidneys with the goal of reducing wastage, and on the impact of COVID-19 on transplant recipients. Since 1987, Dr. Cohen has been an AST member and has served the society in multiple roles, with extensive contributions on the Public Policy Committee and in the education of AST members on issues involving managed care and transplantation, as well as a term as on the AST board from 2009 to 2012. Dr. Cohen's long and distinguished career in clinical kidney transplantation and his decades-long service to the AST make him a most deserving recipient of the 2021 Senior Achievement Award in Clinical Transplantation. Congratulations on this achievement, Dr. Cohen. The AST Mentoring Award highlights AST members who have made outstanding contributions to the education of future leaders in transplantation. This year's recipient is Dr. John Bukavalis of the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Dr. Bukavalis is truly a triple threat physician scientist with numerous high-quality publications supported by extramural federal funding, while also being recognized as a master educator and excellent clinician. As an international leader in the field of pediatric liver transplantation, he has published over 150 peer-reviewed publications with over 20 years of continuous NIH funding. His most recognized research contributions relate to medication non-adherence, late liver allograft injury, immunosuppression withdrawal protocols, and liver allocation models. As a mentor, Dr. Bukavalis' dedication to his mentees is not hindered by such obstacles as institutional structure, professional responsibilities, or geographic location. His relationships with his mentees, once established, are long-standing, and he is generous with his time, offers candid advice, and seeks no credit for his mentees' success, despite his undoubted influence. More than half of his past and current mentees presently hold major institutional leadership roles. In addition to their leadership positions, many of these physicians are national leaders in the field of pediatric gastroenterology and hepatology. Dr. Bukovalis has been a long-standing AST member and a valuable leader and contributor to the LICOP and PCOP initiatives, mentoring multiple individuals through LICOP and the formal mentoring program he developed with a LICOP mentee. He was a powerful voice for the pediatric transplant community during his time as a member at large of the LICOP Executive Committee, bringing innovative ideas to impact LICOP initiatives and guiding LICOP's research and advocacy initiatives in pediatric liver transplantation. What motivates Dr. Bukovalis is not personal success, but rather the success of individuals he supports and the advancement of patient care that all collectively is achieved as a team. Indeed, Dr. Bukovalis' approaches his mentor role as if he were a member of the team, leveraging his skills and his resources for the benefit of his mentees without necessarily getting anything in return. Dr. Bukovalis has clearly established himself as one of the most dedicated and prolific mentors in transplantation and is extremely deserving of this award. Congratulations, Dr. Bukovalis. Next, the AST presents the inaugural Physician of Distinguished Award to Dr. Helen Tay of the University of Chicago. This award is designed to recognize outstanding transplant physicians whose careers are focused on clinical care and also have a reputation as an outstanding clinician and innovator. Dr. Tay's name is synonymous with the University of Chicago's liver transplant program, which she has led as the medical director of adult liver transplant program for the past 15 years. Through her sustained efforts, at times as a sole transplant hepatologist of the program, she maintained UNOS accreditation, led a loyal staff of coordinators and nurses, and eventually helped to reinvigorate the program to its status today as a leader in liver transplantation. She has also led efforts in various treatment protocols, including co-authoring the AST IDCOP guidelines on viral hepatitis. She has over 80 peer-reviewed publications, the vast majority of them related to topics in chronic liver disease and liver transplantation, multi-organ transplantation, and immunosuppression. Dr. Tay has dedicated the latter part of her career to policymaking, guideline development, and program planning of national conferences. As an AST member for over 20 years, Dr. Tay has held numerous leadership roles within the AST since 2013. She has served on the executive committee of both the Women's Health COP and the Liver and Intestine COP, and later served as LICOP's executive committee chair. She has also co-chaired the public policy subcommittee of LICOP since 2016. She has been actively involved in all aspects of the American Transplant Congress since 2009, culminating in her position as chair of the ATC Program Planning Committee this past year, and her leadership of one of the earliest, most successful virtual national conferences since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Tay is a recognized leader in the field of liver transplantation, a tremendous patient advocate, and an admired and respected role model. She is the embodiment of a successful, highly productive, and well-respected clinician. We are honored to recognize her with this award. Dr. Tay, congratulations. This next award is special. It honors a transplant community member who is a champion for transplantation. Award nominees have included transplant patients, living donors, donor families, and other community advocates. The AST's Transplant Community Advisory Council selects the recipient of this award. I'm very proud to say this year's AST Transplant Advocacy Award recipient is Mr. Kevin Fowler. Mr. Fowler has a deep passion for patient advocacy and patient engagement, which stems from his experience receiving a kidney transplant in 2004 and his 30 years in the pharmaceutical industry. Combining his professional background and experience as a patient has given him a unique perspective, which he uses to advocate for patient voice and recipient rights with organizations like the Kidney Health Initiative, the Renal Research Institute, and the Coalition for Kidney Health at the National Kidney Foundation, as well as the AST's Transplant Patient Advisory Group. He has also served as a patient voice editor for CJASN and published a number of papers in several major transplant and nephrology journals, including the AJT. Transplant patients are lucky to have Mr. Fowler advocating on their behalf. Congratulations on this award. The AST Basic Science Established Investigator Award is awarded to a senior basic scientist at the professor level. This year's award goes to Dr. Jean Lee of the University Methodist Hospital. Dr. Lee is a first-class transplant immunologist and original thinker who has dedicated his research career to the study of transplant rejection and tolerance and has published in many prominent journals, including Nature Medicine, Science, and the Journal of Experimental Medicine. While in Terry Strom's lab during his fellowship, he discovered that T-cell apoptosis is essential for the induction of peripheral transplantation tolerance, and that immunosuppressive regimens targeting both T-cell receptor and co-stimulatory molecules could prevent apoptosis and the induction of tolerance. His study of cytokines led him to the discovery that IL-15 and IL-2 determine T-cell survival in vivo. As an independent investigator, Dr. Lee has continued his work in the field of tolerance and transplant immunology and has made several paradigm-shifting observations. His continuous and abundant federal support, currently in the form of 3 R1 grants and a Kellberg Foundation grant, in addition to collaborative funding, ensure that he will continue to be extremely successful in transplantation research. Dr. Lee has provided extensive service to the AST. He has served 2 terms as a member of the AST Basic Science Advisory Council, is a member of the Community of Transplant Scientists, served as chair of the Vascular Composite Allograft Advisory Council, is an associate editor of AJT, chaired the AST Grants Executive Committee, and most recently chaired the ATC Program Planning Committee at the ATC 2018 in Seattle, arguably one of the most important volunteer tasks of the AST. Dr. Lee's impact on the transplant research community is also exemplified by the numerous fellows he has mentored, many of them now in prominent positions at leading institutions and at the forefront of patient care and transplant research worldwide. Dr. Lee is a sharp, reliable, enthusiastic, and collaborative scientist, engaged and full of innovative ideas. He has enormous work capacity and responsibly gets things done, side by side with juggling the organization of his lab. Congratulations, Dr. Lee, on this well-deserved award. The AST Clinical Science Established Investigator Award, presented to a professor-level senior clinical scientist, goes to Dr. Krista Lenten of the St. Louis University School of Medicine. Dr. Lenten is a professor of medicine with tenure with the St. Louis University Division of Nephrology and the SLU Center for Outcomes Research, with a secondary appointment in the College for Public Health and Social Justice in the Department of Health Management and Policy at SLU. She also serves as the medical director for the Living Donor Kidney Program. Dr. Lenten's successful research career developed through the integration of her passion for transplant with her strong background in epidemiology and public health. She has been funded for her entire career, beginning with her KO8 award on cardiovascular outcomes and risk prediction. Her research has focused on several areas of critical interest in transplantation, which have fundamentally affected by her results. These include cardiovascular outcomes and management in kidney transplant recipients, living donor evaluation, safety and outcomes, economic benefits and analysis of transplant clinical practice, and the impact of COVID-19 on living donor transplantation. Her research strategies include innovative linkages of national registries, claims data, and electronic medical health databases to inform transplant providers of outcomes while influencing guidelines and national policy making. She has facilitated research collaborations between transplant centers as well as across all disciplines. Dr. Lenten has demonstrated incredible productivity. She has 266 peer-reviewed manuscripts, 4 more in press, 17 book chapters, 19 blogs, and innumerable abstracts that were primarily presented as oral presentations. She has served as a mentor for doctoral students, medical undergraduates, and trainees. Dr. Lenten has been an active member of the AST since joining in 2006 as a junior faculty. She served as the co-chair in the Living Donor Community of Practice and participated in numerous work groups of the like LDCOP and KPCOP. Her efforts and leadership have been instrumental in bringing projects to successful completion, including publications, abstracts, and conference presentations. She has also been extensively involved with the ATC and a frequent speaker or moderator for AST online journal clubs. She's an associate editor for the American Journal of Transplantation and serves as a mentor for the newly established AJT Editorial Fellowship, providing supervision and teaching for the next generation of editorial board members. Dr. Lenten epitomizes excellence in her research career, displaying self-motivation, enthusiasm, collaboration, and resourcefulness. Her past and ongoing research efforts help improve the outcomes of donation and transplantation and honor the altruism of organ donors and the courage, hope, and gratitude of those who seek to receive transplants. Congratulations, Dr. Lenten, on this award. The AST Distinguished Senior Career Award, presented to a senior clinician or administrator, goes to Dr. Elisa Gordon of the Feinberg School of Medicine at Northwestern University. Dr. Gordon has been an amazing asset to the field of transplantation from the unique vantage point of an ethicist. In her career, she has focused on the most important challenges that face the consent process for donors and recipients. She has extensively published peer-reviewed articles and book chapters and was instrumental in creating educational modules for patients and professionals alike. Her ability to make connections makes Dr. Gordon especially deserving of this award. She has been leading professional committees for her institution and a number of professional societies since 1999. This work has required her to lead thought-provoking discussions across institutions and disciplines. Her impact is also evident in the many individuals she has mentored. Her rigorous and thorough approach prepares her mentees for successful academic careers. Dr. Gordon has been an AST member for many years and has served as a frequent ATC abstract reviewer and associate editor of AJT, co-chair of the Psychosocial and Ethics Community of Practice, and most recently as a member of the IDEAL Task Force. She has nearly continuous service to the OPTN UNOS on a variety of committees from 2007 through the present, including 4 terms on the Ethics Committee, on which she is currently serving as the chair, as well as service on the Policy Oversight Committee, the Joint Vascularized Composite Allograft Tissues Committee, and several work groups. The field of transplantation has clearly been impacted by Dr. Gordon's continued commitment and intellect, and we congratulate her on this award. Dr. Jonathan Maltzman of Stanford University is the recipient of the AST Basic Science Investigator Award. Dr. Maltzman has 20 years of experience in transplantation as a clinician and basic investigator. He has a strong record of impactful discoveries in transplant immunology, and more recently has focused on a clinically important area of T-cell immunity to CMV infection in transplant recipients. His more significant discoveries include the definition of T-cell receptor signaling, the signaling requirements for memory T-cell generation and maintenance, and more recently, the human T-cell response to persistent CMV infection. With his move to Stanford in 2015, Dr. Maltzman refocused his research to study the immune responses in transplant recipients and the impact of CMV infection on the recipient T-cell repertoire and function. He has reported on T-cell inflation and immune senescence of CMV-specific CD8 positive T-cells after solid organ transplantation, and on newly acquired techniques that should also be useful for the analysis of T-cell responses to other viral infections. His observations of clonal inflations of T-cells to persistent CMV infection in humans runs counterintuitive to reports of T-cell exhaustion in mouse models of chronic LCMV infection. During COVID, Dr. Maltzman began a new line of investigation that addresses antibody responses to the SARS-CoV virus. He was instrumental in developing a multiplex assay to detect these antibodies, quickly obtained funding, and is now investigating the relationships of the SARS-CoV-2 infection and the development of anti-HLA antibodies. Dr. Maltzman's studies will continue to be highly impactful and reshape our understanding of human responses to persistent and acute viral infections that are of particular relevance to clinical transplantation. Dr. Maltzman has taken on numerous leadership roles in the AST. He has served as the co-chair and chair of the Community of Basic Scientists, Grants Committee, AST Turn Committee, and the FAST Committee. He is a current counselor at large and member of the AST Joint Council and is the AST COTS representative to Focus. Dr. Maltzman's blend of experience and expertise has propelled him to be a prominent member of numerous professional societies in addition to the AST. He has served the American Society of Nephrology, the American Association of Immunologists, and the Federation of Clinical Immunology Societies in numerous capacities, including chair of the Education Committee and secretary treasurer for Focus, and as a member of the Program Planning Committee for the ASN. As a wonderfully collaborative, effective, and organized physician scientist dedicated to both the AST and other societies, Dr. Maltzman is highly deserving of this award. Congratulations, Dr. Maltzman. The AST Clinical Science Investigator Award goes to Dr. Vacha Agopian from the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA. Dr. Agopian is a highly successful, productive, and well-funded clinical and translational investigator who has made indelible footprints in the field of liver transplantation. In spite of his busy clinical practice as a liver transplant surgeon, his clinical and translational research works have addressed many difficult areas in liver transplantation. Dr. Agopian's initial scholarly work embodied the development of predictive models or scores to guide the optimization of patient outcomes following liver transplantation. His early research has directly impacted practices at liver transplant centers, resulting in use of intraoperative hemodialysis and transforming the management strategies for polycystic liver disease patients. Dr. Agopian continues to work on improving the outcomes of liver transplant recipients, directing his energies toward the study of increasing indication for liver transplantation in the setting of hepatocellular carcinoma. Dr. Agopian has already published 100 peer-reviewed articles and 6 co-authored book chapters. He is also an outstanding funding track record, currently serving as a PI for an NIH grant, site PI for 2 additional NIH grants, co-PI for 4 additional NIH grants, and co-PI for 2 industry-funded grants. Within the AST, Dr. Agopian has been an active member since he joined the society and is currently serving as a member at large on the AST LICOP Executive Committee and as the chair of the AST LICOP Public Policy Subcommittee, where he leads the LICOP response to various UNOS and other public policy changes put forth for public or society comments. This is not an easy feat in this particular time of radical liver allocation changes, where many LICOP members stand polarized. Yet Dr. Agopian objectively, comprehensively, and accurately represents the voices of the LICOP members in the summary submitted to the AST Board of Directors. Beyond AST, Dr. Agopian has been an active participant in the American Transplant Congress activities, serving as an abstract reviewer, a moderator, and an invited speaker many times over in the past several meetings. He is a nationally recognized thought leader in liver transplantation and hepatocellular carcinoma, and his growing reputation is reflected in his recent appointment as a deputy editor of the Liver Transplantation Journal. Dr. Agopian exemplifies a highly prolific, talented, and well-respected researcher who has been an asset to the AST and to the liver transplant community as a whole. Congratulations, Dr. Agopian. The AST Distinguished Mid-Career Award goes to Dr. Nicole Pilch from the Medical University of South Carolina. Dr. Pilch is a highly productive researcher who has significant experience in all aspects of outcomes research. Her research accomplishments include publication of over 75 manuscripts and 18 book chapters. Her research is focused on the advancement of immunosuppression in the underserved African American community, transplant pharmacy, and more recently, transplant quality and outcomes. Over the past 15 years, Dr. Pilch has mentored countless learners and recent graduates in clinical experiential practice rotations, research, and quality improvement projects. Through her leadership, she has established a core group of transplant pharmacists at MUSC that each have excelled as clinicians, educators, and researchers, but more importantly, as an enviable team. She has continued her dedication to training of clinical specialists and scientists by her active role in the MUSC Pharmacy Residency Program, having served as the Pharmacy Practice Program Director. She has recently been appointed as Director of the Quality and Outcomes and Director of the Regulatory Affairs and Accreditation Committee at the MUSC. Over the past 10 years, Dr. Pilch has grown into a nationally recognized professional within the areas of transplantation and clinical pharmacy practice. She has held numerous leadership positions within the AST, UNOS, and the pharmacy organizations of the ACCP and the ASHP. For the AST, she served on the Executive Committee for the Transplant Pharmacy COP. She has led national initiatives to both improve the care of transplant patients and demonstrate the value of clinical transplant pharmacy services. Specifically, she has led efforts in the Transplant Pharmacist National Workforce Assessment and spearheaded development of guidelines and recommendations for best practices within transplant pharmacy, leading to publications within AJT and AJHP. Her leadership on better defining the role of the transplant pharmacist is evidenced by her senior author status on the publication, Evolution of the Role of the Transplant Pharmacist on the Multidisciplinary Transplant Team. She continues her work in this area by leading the Impact of Transplant Pharmacy Work Group, which is developing a business model to facilitate transplant pharmacist incorporation into the transplant team. Dr. Pilch has gained the respect of the transplant and pharmacy communities through her hard work, leadership, and professional endeavors, and is very deserving of the AST Distinguished Mid-Career Award. Congratulations, Dr. Pilch. The AST Basic Science Career Development Award goes to Dr. Mamta Bhatt of the Ajmera Transplant Program, University Health Network at the University of Toronto. Dr. Bhatt is a hepatologist and clinician scientist who has a unique interdisciplinary skill set in the wet lab and computational biology. She has been employing this unique combination of skills within her translational research program dedicated to the understanding of mechanistic basis of long-term metabolic and malignant complications in liver transplant patients, specifically focusing on non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, post-transplant diabetes, and hepatocellular carcinoma. She aims to inform development of precise preventative and therapeutic strategies for these complications, with these questions directly informed by her clinical practice as a transplant hepatologist. Dr. Bhatt has over 70 publications to her credit, mostly as first or senior author, and has successfully secured external peer-reviewed funding from the American Society of Transplantation, the Canadian Liver Foundation, the Canadian Donation and Transplant Research Program, as well as federal funding from the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada. Dr. Bhatt is a member of the Liver and Intestine Community of Practice. She has reviewed several articles for the American Journal of Transplantation and has served as an abstract reviewer for the PTLD malignancy section for the American Transplant Congress over the last 3 years. Dr. Bhatt has been elected to international committees such as the Clinical Research Committee of the AASLD, the Research Committee of the Canadian Association for the Study of Liver Disease, and the Basic and Translational Science Committee of the International Liver Transplant Society. Dr. Bhatt's productivity in basic and translational science and transplant medicine and her contributions to the transplant community have been outstanding at this early stage of her career and make her very deserving of this reward. Congratulations, Dr. Bhatt. The AST Clinical Science Career Development Award is presented to Dr. Juliette Imam Ali of Keck Medicine of the USC and Children's Hospital at Los Angeles. Despite the rigors of her surgical practice during her first 4 years on faculty, Dr. Imam Ali has distinguished herself as an academic rising star. Dr. Imam Ali has established a robust translational research program that dovetails with her clinical research interests in pediatric liver transplantation, with a basic immunology research program aimed to develop immunologic biomarkers of allograft rejection in liver transplantation. She serves as a principal investigator of numerous institutional, societal, and industry research grant awards, and most notably was funded for her NIH K08 award entitled Immunologic Biomarkers of Rejection in Clinical Liver Transplantation on her very first try. Her research portfolio boasts more than $2 million of extramural and intramural funding. Her publication record thus far highlights her contributions in the field of transplant immunology and pediatric and living donor liver transplantation. She has authored 28 publications since her appointment on faculty, 15 as first or last author in numerous high-impact journals. Overall, her CV boasts 67 publications, 10 book chapters, and 106 meeting abstracts. Dr. Imam Ali has also distinguished herself with leadership and service to the American Society of Transplantation and to the transplant community. She has been a member of the AST since 2007, serving as a member at large on the executive committee for both the pediatric community of practice and the LICOP, and reviewing abstracts for the ATC. She has also served in leadership positions for the ILTS, the ASTS, UNOS, and the North American Living Donor Paired Exchange Pilot Program, as well as positions outside the transplant community with the ACS. Since her faculty appointment, Dr. Imam Ali has established a successful, highly funded translational research program and has contributed to the education and service missions of the AST. Congratulations on this award, Dr. Imam Ali. The AST Distinguished Early Career Award is presented to Ms. Anna Frank of MedStar Georgetown Transplant Institute. Ms. Frank began her career in abdominal transplant surgery at Duke University Medical Center, where she developed and implemented a one-year postgraduate fellowship for advanced practice providers, in addition to providing perioperative care to donors and transplant recipients and caring for postoperative hepatobiliary surgery patients. She has since become the lead PA in the Abdominal Transplant Center at MedStar Georgetown, where she provides patient care and manages all the inpatient transplant advanced practice providers. Her administrative duties include operational and utilization strategies for APPs, recruitment and retention, clinical policy and protocol development, and partnering with other members of the healthcare team in quality initiative projects. Under the leadership of Ms. Frank and her APP team, MedStar Georgetown has developed new clinical pathways and patient care protocols that have automated much of their service while increasing patient and staff satisfaction and assuring the highest optimal care. Within AST, Ms. Frank exhibits exceptional leadership as a member of the APP CCOP Executive Committee. She is a member of the APP Practice Work Group, which created a practice survey for transplant APPs across the nation, helped write and submit 3 abstracts for the ATC, and is currently working on a manuscript based upon the survey. She is a member of the APP COP Mentoring Committee and serves as a mentor. She has taken the lead in exploring and collaborating with other transplant leaders across the country in developing a transplant APP certification for the AST, and through her work with the ASTS, she has led increasing collaboration between APPs of both societies. Ms. Frank is a physician's assistant with enormous potential who is well deserving of this award. Congratulations, Ms. Frank. Please join me in congratulating all of today's Achievement Award recipients with a virtual round of applause. They are an extraordinary group of practitioners and scientists. Before I present our last award, I want to remind you that you can congratulate this year's Achievement Award winners at tonight's recognition gala, which will take place from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Access information will be available on the AST website. The final award that I have the honor of presenting today is the 2021 Lifetime Achievement Award. The recipient of the 2021 Lifetime Achievement Award is Dr. Robert Ettinger. Dr. Robert Ettinger, or Dr. Bob, as his patients call him, is a distinguished research professor emeritus of pediatric nephrology at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA. He has been engaged in all aspects of pediatric kidney transplantation since the mid-1970s. Dr. Ettinger has been married to Dr. Angela Castellano for over 40 years. Their daughter Allison works in the maternal and child public health and lives with her husband Blake in the Bay Area. Angela and Bob have had 2 other daughters, Yvette, who died as a newborn, and Jessica, who died tragically at the age of 20. Bob grew up in Philadelphia, where he learned at an early stage to say use guides, 2 or 3 beers, and bleed Eagles green. He attended the University of Pennsylvania for both his undergraduate and medical education and did his residency at St. Christopher's Hospital for Children. He then moved to Los Angeles for his pediatric nephrology fellowship and subsequently spent 2 years in the laboratory of Dr. Paul Terasaki. He joined the pediatric nephrology faculty at the University of Southern California Medical School. After 7 years, he saw the light and went back to the other side of town, joining the faculty at UCLA and becoming a diehard Bruin. At UCLA, Dr. Ettinger has been the head of the Division of Pediatric Nephrology for 25 years and the medical director of the Pediatric Kidney Transplant Program for almost 35 years. He was also the medical director of the UCLA Histocompatibility Laboratory for 12 years. In his program, he trained over 100 pediatric nephrology fellows. He has also served as a vice chairman for the academic affairs in the Department of Pediatrics and as the chief of the medical staff for the Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center. While still a fellow, Dr. Ettinger was the first to identify the association between what we know now as anti-HLA-2 antibodies and renal allograft rejection. At the same time, he introduced the concept of performing independently the pre-transplant T and B cell crossmatch. Dr. Ettinger subsequently published a number of articles in histocompatibility and then moved on to the area of immunosuppression in pediatric kidney transplantation. He helped study and develop in children such agents as mycophenolate mofetil and Myfortic, as well as everolimus and valganciclovir. Dr. Ettinger published extensively on the vexing problem of immunosuppressive medication non-adherence in adolescents, introducing the use of tacrolimus level percent coefficient of variation as an indicator of adherence or non-adherence. Finally, he has had an abiding interest in the challenge of recurrent focal glomerular sclerosis. His early development of the use of ultra high dose oral cyclophosphamide to induce remission is still in use today. Dr. Ettinger has published over 200 peer-reviewed articles and more than 100 invited articles and book chapters. He has received more than 50 research grants and has lectured extensively both nationally and internationally. Dr. Ettinger was very active in the AST, particularly in its early days. He was a founding member of the AST Board of Directors and served as its third president in 1984. He chaired the program committee for one of the early annual meetings, served on many other society program committees, and gave many invited talks at ATC meetings. He also served as the chairman of the AST's Pediatric Committee for a number of years. Finally, he served as the associate editor for the American Journal of Transplantation. In addition to serving AST, Dr. Ettinger held multiple positions within UNOS and the OPTN. He chaired the Pediatric Committee, where he worked tirelessly to revise and improve the renal allocation system for children. He spent a number of years on the Membership and Professional Standards Committee, and he served on the UNOS Board of Directors. He also held positions in governmental organizations. He served on advisory committees for 2 FDA divisions. He was a reviewer on a number of NIH study sections and a longtime member of the Transplantation DSMB for NIAID. He also served on the advisory committee on transplantation to the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Amidst all of this, Dr. Ettinger's chief professional reward comes from caring for his patients. Through his career, Dr. Bob has taken care of more than 1,000 pediatric kidney transplant recipients. While many of these patients have moved on to be cared for by adult transplant programs, many of them still stay in touch. In celebration of Dr. Ettinger's extensive contributions to the transplant community over his long and distinguished career, I am proud to present him with the 2021 Lifetime Achievement Award. At this time, I would like to welcome Dr. Ettinger.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the Society and the Awards Committee for this honor. I am humbled to be even mentioned in the same sentence with such giants as Sudan, Terry Strom, Phil Halloran, and Bernie Carpenter. I owe so much to mentors like Richard Fine, Mohammed Malik, and Alan Gruskin, and to valued and brilliant colleagues such as Ron Kerman, Elaine Reed, Paul Grimm, Tom Blood Hansen, Barry Warshaw, Megan Pearl, Patty Wang, Sam Alakash, and Eileen Sy Chambers. And I owe particularly a huge debt of gratitude to my wife, Angela, and to my daughters, Allie, and my daughter, Jessie, of blessed memory. There are others who I would like to honor in the context of 3 brief principles that I would like to highlight now. First, and most importantly, it is critical to remember that in the field of organ transplantation, we transplant medical professionals are not the heroes in spite of what you might see on television. That heroism is resolved for our patients, and in my case, for the parents of these patients. Our patients are the ones who have faced death and crushing disability. While it is true that organ transplants are life-saving, our patients have to face such realities as multiple surgeries, rejection, depression and anxiety, severe infection, cancer, premature cardiovascular disease, and too often shortened lifespans. Next slide, please. The second point is an admonition to all of us. Every minute of research or clinical care that we do stands in service to these patients. We don't spend long hours in the lab, in the ICU, in drug development, or in seemingly interminable meetings. We don't do these things to turn a profit, advance academically, or to win awards. Rather, every bit of our new knowledge that we generate will in some way help and preserve our patients now and in the future. And we continue to persevere when we are continually failing, in spite of that continual failure. Next slide. As that eminent transplant immunobiologist said, I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. Next slide. However, the principle 3 is perhaps the most important. However well we think we are doing, we can do better. Our goal should be to improve our patient's life and to address such critical problems as immune tolerance, medication adherence, amelioration of side effects, and precisely treating our patients with the best immunology we can. We need to keep these 3 principles before us as professionals and as compassionate human beings to focus our personal North Stars. And to paraphrase a recent pediatric paper, our goal should be always not only to add years to our patient life, but to add life to our patient years. Thank you very much.
I am proud to welcome Dr. Ettinger to this distinguished group of Lifetime Achievement Award recipients who have created a legacy of excellence and dedication to the field of transplantation. Please join me in a virtual round of applause for Dr. Ettinger. Thank you for joining us for this year's AST Awards ceremony. I want to make one last plug for tonight's recognition gala, during which you can congratulate the award winners in a small group video format from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We also hope that you will be able to join us for the AST Town Hall, which will be taking place tomorrow evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. At the Town Hall, we will be announcing the results of the 2021 Board of Directors election and providing a forum for discussion of topics that impact the community at large. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the ATC meeting.